Surf clams, they're absolutely, all clams, packed with flavour. And when you're using them, you never want to really swamp them with too much of a heavy kind of sauce, because you want to just nice, light, clean flavours. Let the sauce let the clams, if you like, create the flavour and the sauce for you. They're, I think, the single highest food of vitamin B12 there is, leaving the likes of steak and that completely for dust, essentially. So, and beef. So these, you know, plus they have a whole array of other nutrients with them. I'm going to pair this up with a little pasta. Now, a lot of times when we're eating the wheat-based pastas, they do potentially have the potential to give a fairly high insulin spike, and that in turn is quite an inflammatory reaction that can cause its own problems. So I'm going to play around with a little lentil pasta. Now you'll get these in health shops. They're becoming increasingly popular. You know, sweet potato pastas, lentil pastas, and so on. But it's a non-wheat pasta. They're very tasty, very high in protein, and you won't have any of the kind of insulin spikes that you might associate with a white flour based food. Now, having said that, white flour based durum wheats are not too bad compared to a lot of wheats that are used for a lot of bread making, for modern, especially white breads and so on. They cause a lot of problems. But durum wheat is an older grain, and you know, it's still a good grain, but it just paired up with lots of other proteins, other things, and you won't lots of vegetables, fibers, and so on within your pasta, and you're not going to probably have too much of a problems with that. And as well as that, nothing should really be completely off limits. Like, it's not a diet of servitude by any means. But this is full of flavour as well. Using lots of these knives, I'm using a surf clam here. There's lots of different varieties. I'm going to also just use a few garden herbs. Now again, I have a nice herb garden. I can use a lot of different herbs. They're less complicated, you know. But if you could only get flat leaf parsley or even just basil, that would be fine in this. I'm going to use a little bit of marjoram, fennel. I have some nice little thyme flowers which I'm just going to trickle over the top at the last minute, and a little bit of oregano. But the herbs, the harder herbs like the sage, the rosemaries might be a bit dominant. But the kind of what you might associate with Mediterranean herbs, any at all will do this. I'm just going to pop a few French beans in this as well, or fine beans, just to kind of give a bit of greenery and give a bit of balance to the whole dish. So let's progress. Oh, and I'm going to use capers to bring acidity into the dish as well. So a nice simple clam pasta this, only if we're using a lentil pasta as opposed to a normal durum wheat pasta. So to make this dish, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all put a little piece of olive oil into a warm pan, not a hot pan, just warm. I don't want to boil, I don't want to heat the olive oil overly. And into that, I'm just going to add my garlic. And I'm going to kind of just more poach the garlic, just very gently, just to get a little bit of flavour through there. But I don't want to fry, because when I fry olive oil, I'll denature it. But I just want to infuse that little bit of flavour in there. Can add a little pinch of garlic. If you hear any kind of frying noise, just get it off the heat completely. As you can see, just nice kind of a lower temperature, just to infuse a little piece of garlic. And then into that, I'm going to add my tomato. If you notice, I'm just keeping it off the heat there. Now I can put it on the heat, because the tomato obviously contains moisture, and that's going to protect that olive oil. Again, the goal here is to try to keep your olive oil below 100 degrees whenever you're cooking with it. Otherwise, if you're frying, as I often said, use a coconut oil. It's a good option. It's probably your only real good solid option for actually high heat cooking. Now into that next, I'm going to add, so that's my little bit of olive oil, just to get a little bit of flavour onto it, and my tomatoes. And now I'm going to pop in my capers, just to get that little bit of acidity into this. Very quick little dish. Going to pop a little bit of black pepper. No need to really use so much salt, because the clams, especially if they're good and fresh, will probably have a little bit of seawater in them still. And when they open up, that seawater will be released. So never, when you're cooking mussels, clams, that kind of fish, shellfish, avoid using the salt until the very end. I know I used a little pinch there, but that was more to draw a flavour and just a small little pinch. Next, at the same time, I'm going to add my beans. Just let them toss around for a second there. Again, I didn't blanch these. You could blanch them, add them in later, but I think they'll cook fine like this. And now I'm going to add my clams. At the same time I add my clams, just to give a little bit of a head start with cooking, I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of water. Then I'm going to just pop a tight fitting lid on this until the clams start to open up. That'll probably just take just a couple of minutes there to do. Do keep an eye on it as it's cooking, but I'd say keep the lid on it good and tight for at least a minute anyway, on a high heat. I'd say it'll take about 2 minutes to cook. So I haven't cooked for about 2 or 3 minutes actually. My clams are just all nice and opened, as you can see, and the beans will be starting to tenderise. Now, next up we'll add our pasta. I pre-warmed this. I just stuck it in the microwave for a second, or else you could cook it and hold it warm. It's just better to do it like this because that way you're not risking overcooking the other ingredients. Makes it just a little bit easier. And then it's a case of just add a little bit of olive oil over the dish as a whole. So you find it's a little bit on the dry side, you can add a little splash of water. Just going to bring up a nice sauciness. I don't ever like to swamp clams with any kind of a heavy sauce because, you know, let them do their flavour. They have such a good flavour profile themselves. You can just have a little taste of some of that then. See how our flavour is and our seasoning. Just a little pinch more salt into it at this stage. Maybe a little bit more black pepper. And then I'm going to finish with my chopped herbs. A little selection, whatever herbs you have convenient. Basil would work, any of the kind of, as I said, the Mediterranean type of herbs. And that is pretty much it. Very simple little, and very high protein, high nutrient, very, very nutrient dense little clam pasta using a lentil pasta. And that's all ready for serving. And to serve this up, just into a little bowl, and just simply spoon away some of the pasta, plenty of the clams, some of the juice along with it. Nice simple dish. And then a nice little trickle of olive oil. And I'm just going to throw a few of those little fennel that I just retained, a little few sprigs of fennel. And maybe just a couple of those little thyme flowers, just the flowers at a time. I didn't use them in the main mix. So you go to, and use them quite sparingly because thyme is quite a dominant herb. But every now and again, you're just going to get this little bite of that thyme flavour then, which is a lovely fresh flavour. And again, this is completely optional if you have the flowers. If you don't have them, you know, no panic. Just a very, very simple, high protein little clam pasta that.